It was a crime that didn't just break the news, it shattered the spirit of an entire nation. In the final months of 2023, Jamaica stood still as the chilling details of a double murder began to emerge. A story involving a powerful politician, a high-ranking U.S. Navy officer, and an innocent 10-month-old baby girl. Today, we peel back the layers of the untold story of Leoda Bradshaw, the woman at the center of one of the most tragic, calculated, and mysterious legal cases in the history of the Jamaican judicial system. To understand the gravity of the charges, we have to look past the headlines and into the shadows of a relationship that turned into a deadly obsession. We will also give you an update on the status of the case as at today's date and what will happen over the coming weeks. If you want more videos like this, please hit that like and subscribe to the channel right now. It will really help the channel grow. Plus, you will be notified when we release more content like this in the future. On the surface, Leoda Bradshaw was the embodiment of success for a Jamaican in the diaspora. At 34 years old, she was a culinary specialist seaman in the United States Navy, stationed at a recruiting unit in Miami, Florida. She was a woman who had built a life of discipline and service, enlisting in 2020 and maintaining a professional career that required a high level of trust and security clearance. But behind the crisp naval uniform and the life of a migrant success story was a complicated, long-standing, and increasingly volatile connection with Phillip Paulwell, a veteran member of Parliament and a titan of the People's National Party. Bradshaw didn't just see Paulwell as the father of her child. According to the prosecution's case, she viewed him as her husband in spirit, if not in law, a belief that would eventually form the foundation of a motive so dark it would shock the world. This obsession was fueled by a perceived entitlement to Paulwell's life, status, and resources. Bradshaw reportedly maintained a rigid belief that her place in his world was paramount, and she viewed any other romantic or parental ties he held as a direct threat to her own standing. The discovery of Paulwell's relationship with Toshina Patterson and the birth of their 10-month-old daughter, Saraya, acted as the ultimate catalyst for her descent into violence. To Bradshaw, Toshina was not just another woman, but a rival whose existence, and that of her child, represented a competition that needed to be permanently eliminated to secure her own position as the primary figure in Paulwell's life. The depth of this fixation was revealed through her calculated actions leading up to the tragedy. Rather than a spontaneous act of rage, investigators uncovered evidence of a cold, premeditated plan. Bradshaw allegedly monitored Toshina's movements and even engaged her in social media conversations under the guise of civility. This digital stalking was a prelude to her journey from Miami to Jamaica in September 2023, where she is accused of masterminding a murder-for-hire plot. Her obsession was so intense that she reportedly valued the lives of a young mother and an innocent infant at a mere 100,000 Jamaican dollars, a chillingly small price for the removal of what she saw as obstacles to her desired life. Even as the investigation closed in, Bradshaw's behavior continued to reflect a woman desperate to control the narrative of her relationship. Her public social media posts, claiming innocence and feigning concern for the missing pair, were viewed by prosecutors as a final, manipulative attempt to shield her place in Paulwell's life from the consequences of her alleged actions. This duality, the disciplined sailor and the allegedly cold-blooded architect of a double murder, remains at the heart of a case that has left Jamaica reeling from the realization of how far a deadly obsession can truly go. The nightmare began on the morning of September 9th, 2023. Toshina Patterson, a 27-year-old mother, and her 10-month-old daughter, Saraya Paulwell, were reportedly standing outside their gate on Gilmore Drive in St. Andrew. It was a typical Saturday morning until a vehicle pulled up, and in a flash, they were snatched. For weeks, Jamaica held its breath. Phillip Paulwell made agonizing public pleas for their safe return, offering a massive multi-million-dollar reward for any information. But behind the scenes, the forensic trail was already leading straight to Bradshaw. The hope of a safe return evaporated when the charred remains of Toshina and little Saraya were discovered in the rugged, desolate terrain of Wareka Hills in East Kingston. The brutality was beyond comprehension. They had been kidnapped, executed, and their bodies set on fire to hide the evidence. The damage was so severe that it required weeks of specialized forensic and DNA testing to officially confirm what the nation already feared. In perhaps the most chilling chapter of this saga, while the search for the missing pair was still active, a social media account linked to Bradshaw posted a lengthy, defiant public statement. In it, she claimed she had absolutely nothing to do with the disappearance, and even alleged she had reached out to Toshina earlier that month to have a civil conversation about their mutual relationship with Paulwell. She portrayed herself as a victim of rumors, but investigators now believe this was a sophisticated attempt to create a digital alibi and manipulate public opinion while the disposal of the bodies was still being finalized. The legal fallout has been swift for some. Richard Brown, one of the co-conspirators, eventually buckled under the weight of the evidence and pleaded guilty in late 2023. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison, and his testimony provided a gruesome, play-by-play account of the victim's final moments, details so disturbing they were withheld from the general public until now. According to court documents and the chilling confession provided by Richard Brown, one of the men hired for the hit, the final moments of Toshina Patterson and 10-month-old Saraya Paulwell were marked by unimaginable calculated brutality. The prosecution's case, supported by the testimony given during Richard Brown's sentencing in late 2023, outlines a step-by-step execution of the plot. 1. The abduction. On the morning of September 9, 2023, Toshina Patterson was at her home on Gilmore Drive in St. Andrew with her infant daughter. Richard Brown and his co-conspirators arrived at the gate in a vehicle. It is alleged that they lured Toshina outside or snatched them both quickly, forcing them into the car. At this stage, Toshina likely believed she was being kidnapped for ransom, unaware that the order had already been given to ensure neither she nor the child returned alive. 2. The transport to Wareka Hills. The victims were driven to a secluded, rugged area in Wareka Hills, East Kingston. This location was chosen specifically for its isolation and difficult terrain, making it unlikely for any witnesses to be present or for the bodies to be easily discovered. 3. The execution. Once they reached the desolate site, the trigger man, identified in court as Richard Brown, carried out the murders. The mother, Toshina Patterson, was shot multiple times. The child. In a detail that devastated the nation, it was revealed that 10-month-old Saraya was also shot. The prosecution emphasized that there was no mercy shown to the infant, who was viewed by the conspirators as a liability or part of the package ordered by the mastermind. 4. The disposal and burning. Following the shooting, the men set the bodies on fire. The goal was to destroy all forensic evidence and make identification impossible. They then disposed of the charred remains in the hilly brush. When the police finally discovered the site weeks later, the remains were so badly burned that they were described as skeletal fragments, requiring advanced DNA testing to confirm they belonged to Toshina and Saraya. 5. The blood money. Richard Brown admitted in court that he was paid for the act. While initial rumors suggested a higher amount, court proceedings indicated that the men were recruited for relatively small sums of money. Brown eventually cooperated with the authorities, providing the play-by-play account that led to his 30-year prison sentence and the subsequent charges against Leoda Bradshaw as the architect of the entire operation. According to the testimony and evidence presented in the Jamaican courts, one of the individuals involved, Roshane Miller, reportedly showed significant reluctance and eventually withdrew from the actual execution of the murder. He said his conscience could not allow him to take the life of a cute little innocent baby. Miller was part of the original group of four, Bradshaw, Brown, Balfour, and Miller, who allegedly met to plan the kidnapping and murder. During the investigation, it was revealed that Miller was present during the initial stages of the abduction. However, according to the prosecution, Miller withdrew from the mission before the victims were taken to Waurika Hills to be killed. Despite his withdrawal from the act of killing, Miller was still heavily implicated because he was part of the conspiracy. In late 2023, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of conspiracy to kidnap, 2 counts of misprision of a felony, knowing about a crime but failing to report it to the authorities. Because he did not participate in the actual murder and cooperated with the police, he received a significantly lighter sentence than Richard Brown. He was sentenced to 7 years and 9 months in prison. In contrast, Richard Brown, who also pleaded guilty, admitted to being the one who actually pulled the trigger. During his sentencing, the court heard that he showed no such reluctance at the site, executing both the mother and the 10-month-old baby before setting them on fire. He is currently serving 30 years at hard labor. As of January 2026, Leoda Bradshaw remains in custody, awaiting the final stages of a trial that has seen multiple delays and intense legal maneuvering. She faces 2 counts each of murder, kidnapping, conspiracy to murder, and conspiracy to kidnap. Her defense team, led by some of the island's top attorneys, continues to challenge the cell site data and the credibility of the co-conspirators. The story of Leoda Bradshaw is more than just a true crime headline. It is a haunting reminder of the devastating power of obsession. It has left a prominent politician mourning a child who will never grow up, a family grieving for a mother whose life was cut short, and a nation scarred by the realization that such evil could be plotted so calmly. As the mysterious lady from the U.S. Navy waits for the final verdict, Jamaica continues to ask, how could someone who served her country and was a mother herself allegedly orchestrate the destruction of another woman and a helpless 10-month-old baby? Thanks for watching, and click the link on screen now to watch another interesting Jamaican content. Catch you in the next video.